Hello Internet, coming here talking to you about Mesmer Domi recall. This is not a DPS rotation, but instead a rotation designed to maintain permanent quickness and alacrity upon yourself and your group. One of the key traits in this build is illusionary inspiration. Whenever you summon a phantasm, it will also cast Signet of Inspiration. And Signet of Inspiration in turn will apply one instance of any boon upon you to nearby allies. This means that if you have quickness upon yourself, you will also be applying a stack of quickness for 4.5 seconds to yourself and to your allies. This is really handy, but do note that your phantasms do have a cast time with their Signet of Inspiration, and it does have a cooldown, so you can't just spam the skill. Before you use Signet of Inspiration, you obviously need quickness. So one of the key skills in this rotation is Well of Action, which will give you 5 seconds of quickness. The other skill which gives you quickness is Tides of Time, which gives you 2.5 seconds of quickness. So as long as you have used one of these skills before you have used Signet of Inspiration, or even if you just have quickness on you in general, you're good to use Signet of Inspiration or any of your phantasms. You use almost all of your weapon skills in this, so I won't cover them, but Signet of Inspiration is obviously on your bar. Well of Recall will be used for giving you 7 seconds of alacrity, and you get 2 seconds of alacrity from Well of Eternity. Let's check out the rotation in slow-mo. We kick off with Phantasmal Warden, and then we use Illusionary Leap, which is trying to get our Phantasm count up so that we get a good duration on Continuous Fit. So we weapon swap. We need to be quick at this point because you notice that we got boon duration increased on our sigil. We're going to use Echo of Memory, and then we're going to use Tides of Time, and we're going to continue and split as Tides of Time is in progress. Then we put down Well of Action, Signet of Inspiration, Well of Recall, finally our Well of Eternity. If you have Gravity Well, put that down as well. If you don't have it, then no biggie. And Continuum Split should come off cooldown, and all of those skills are back. You can then use Tides of Time again to stack even more quickness. And then you can weapon swap. Now you've got your boon duration sigil procced again, and you can use your wells and Signet of Inspiration again. Now at this point, you can sit back and relax. You can use any of your weapon skills except for your Phantasm. Just do whatever you need to do, dodge mechanics, whatever. What we're doing is we're looking at the cooldowns on our skills. We're looking at Well of Action. My Well of Action is on skill number 9. You can see it at the top. I made it even larger so you can see it. And we're waiting for it to be 7 seconds. When we reach 7 seconds, it's the ideal time for us to use our Phantasmal Warden again, because that's when we will refresh our quickness. You can see the quickness in the bottom left ticking down, but when we reach 7 seconds, we're going to use our Phantasmal Warden. It's going to use Signet of Inspiration, and then our quickness is back. So now we're playing the waiting game again. This time we're looking at Well of Eternity, which is the heal skill number 6. We're waiting for this to be 6 seconds. When it's 6 seconds, we'll weapon swap. This is the ideal time to do so because skills on our other weapon will be coming off cooldown. So 6 seconds have happened, and now we're going to do a weapon swap. And we're going to do this combo. We're going to do Well of Action, Tides of Time, then Signet of Inspiration, then Echo of Memory. Because this is our second time in Sword Shield, we're going to put down a Well of Eternity, and we're just going to wait until we're ready for Well of Recall, and then we're going to use Well of Recall when that comes off cooldown. So here comes Well of Recall, and we weapon swap again. So now we're back to the waiting game, but this time we're waiting for 8 seconds on the cooldown of Well of Action to use our Phantasmal Warden. So here we go, 8 seconds on our Well of Action, and we put Phantasmal Warden. We refresh our quickness again. And as before, we are going to wait for 6 seconds for our Well of Eternity before we go back to Sword Shield. So because of our Phantasms, Phantasmal Warden and Echo of Memory, as well as directly using Signet of Inspiration, we're able to get even more quickness than we would using direct skills. So we're approaching 6 seconds. We're going to do our weapon swap. So we've got Boon Duration. We're going to do the same combo as before. We're going to do Well of Action. We're going to do Tides of Time. And then we're going to do Signet of Inspiration and Echo of Memory. This time, however, since it's our third time in and we're nearly off cooldown with Continuum Split, we're not going to use our heal skill and we're not going to use Well of Recall. We're just going to wait it out. Now that weapon swap is available, we can weapon swap again, and you guessed it, we're simply waiting until we can use our Phantasmal Warden. We're waiting for 9 seconds, so 9 seconds comes quite quickly, so we can use our Phantasmal Warden almost straight away. And then we wait for our weapon swap cooldown to become available again, and we're also waiting for Continuum Split to come off cooldown. Now we're pretty much back at the start of the rotation. We can put down Well of Action, and we want to Continuum Split during the middle of Well of Action so we get the most amount of time out of our Continuum Split. So we can do Signet of Inspiration and our 2 Wells, and then we can use Tides of Time. The only difference between the start of the rotation and where we are now is that Tides of Time was still off cooldown, so we just use it a little bit later. Try and get Gravity Well in if you can, and then all of your skills will be recharged. Since Tides of Time was still recharging when I used Continuum Split, there's a little bit of a recharge, but now we can pretty much continue as before. We can use Tides of Time and then weapon swap, and then we can use the combo again, so we can put Well of Action, Signet of Inspiration, Well of Recall and Well of Eternity, and we've stacked up again. So let's check that out at full speed. Getting our Phantasms and our clones up, and we're going to use Tides of Time, and then we're going to put our Wells and Signet of Inspiration down whilst in Continuum Split. All our skills get recharged. We use Tides of Time, weapon swap, do Well of Action, Signet of Inspiration, Well of Recall and Well of Eternity again. And then we're waiting and waiting and waiting until 7 seconds cooldown on our Well of Action. Now that 7 seconds happened, we've used our Phantasmal Warden, we've refreshed our quickness. We're waiting for 6 seconds to do our weapon swap. We do Well of Action, Tides of Time, Signet of Inspiration, Echo of Memory, Well of Eternity, and waiting for Well of Recall. Now we weapon swap again, and we're doing a waiting game. It's time for 8 seconds for our Phantasmal Warden. Now we're waiting again for 6 seconds on our Well of Eternity so that we can weapon swap. Now we weapon swap, we're going to use Well of Action, Tides of Time, Signet of Inspiration and Echo of Memory. But we're not going to use our heal skill, nor we're going to use Well of Recall because we want them ready for when we're off Continuum Split. Waiting for 9 seconds to use our Phantasm, and then we're just waiting for everything to come off cooldown to start the rotation again. Sometimes you might want to use a focus instead of sword. This is because of the focus pool on your number 4 skill, but as it happens your number 5 skill is also a Phantasm. So how does this affect your rotation? Not at all, it's exactly the same as before. So you put down your Phantasms and your clones, Then you use Tide to Time, and then you do the exact same combo of wells as before, whilst in continuum split. Everything comes off cooldown. You use Tide to Time, weapon swap, put down your wells, Signet of Inspiration again, and this time you're waiting again for the cooldown on Well of Action before you use your Phantasm again. So 7 seconds on Well of Action, we used our Phantasm, we're waiting for 6 seconds to weapon swap again. Then we use Well of Action, Tide to Time, Signet of Inspiration, Echo of Memory. We're going to use Well of Eternity, Well of Recall, and then we're going to weapon swap. This time we're waiting for 8 seconds on Well of Action to use our Phantasm. There we go, we use it. And we're waiting again for 6 seconds on Well of Eternity so that we can weapon swap. When we weapon swap, we use Well of Action, Tide to Time, Signet of Inspiration, and Echo of Memory, but we're not going to touch our heal skill this time, nor are we going to touch Well of Recall. We're going to weapon swap, wait for 9 seconds, use our Phantasm, and then wait for everything to come off cooldown to start over again. So, one of the more advanced uses of this build is that whenever you use Signet of Inspiration, or any Signet in fact, you will be grant temporary distortion, and that distortion gets applied to allies as well. This means you can ignore some mechanics such as Green Circle at Veil Guardian, but you won't be able to just use your rotation in autopilot to do so. You'll have to delay using something. So here you see I'm delaying doing my weapon swap, and now I'm using Signet of Inspiration. I got my timings just right so that I can line up Signet of Inspiration in time for when the green circle hits. So now I'm pretty much back on rotation at this point. I'm at 7 seconds on Well of Action. I use my Phantasm. My Phantasm did Signet of Inspiration, which refreshed my quickness and gave me distortion just at the right time. However, at this point I delayed weapon swapping. I was a bit later than 6 seconds on the weapon swap, but I continue my rotation as before anyway, so I use my Well of Action, Tide to Time, Signet of Inspiration just as the green circle hit, and continued as before. Now, quickness is almost going to run out, and as it happens we're around 6 seconds, so we can weapon swap. We can use our Well of Action, Tide to Time, Signet of Inspiration, and our Echo of Memory, and suddenly we've got our quickness back. Now I am delaying using my Phantasm way more than I should be. Quickness is almost going to run out again, but I did manage to refresh it at the very last second, and I managed to catch that green circle with it. But we are almost back at the start of the rotation, which means we can refresh a huge mass of quickness and alacrity all over again by just restarting the rotation again. So the foundations really are to learn the quickness rotation, make sure you're providing your group a good amount of quickness and alacrity. It will really boost their DPS, and if you're able to weave in distortion share, that should be a secondary objective. So good luck with your practice.